Hello, former Crusaders, and welcome to another episode. My name's Sean Waskrug. With me, as always, is Brian Michaels. And today we are doing a non-spoiler review and a spoiler discussion of the latest film to hit theaters, The Flash. This movie has... God, how long has it been since The Flash movie was supposed to come out? Was it like right after Justice League?
Yeah, it's supposed to come out, I want to say like a year or two after Justice League, but they've been talking about it since forever.
I think since before like the actual Flash TV show came out. And that went 9 seasons, and it ended before The Flash came out. But yeah, we're talking about DC's The Flash. This movie has had a ton of story and pushbacks and changes of directors. And will Ezra Miller be the Flash? Will they not be the Flash because Ezra Miller's a garbage person in real life? But Brian and I will say this right now, get this out of the way. We are not paying attention to that. We are just paying attention to the movie and the story and the character of Barry Allen. So if you're expecting us to go, we're boycotting this movie because we are able to separate art from life. That's why we're still able to watch Kevin Spacey movies and not be like, I fucking hate that movie now because Kevin Spacey said it. No, like Kevin Spacey was really good in that movie. Doesn't mean I like the guy as a person, but
I also want to say upfront, only because I've seen people jumping on other reviewers for it already, because they're stupid, they don't understand. When we are in the review and we talk about he and him, we're talking about the character of Barry Allen. So don't get on us going, oh no, it's they, because it's not. That's the actor, not the character. Anyway,
it's not that we're being disrespectful. It's just we're talking quickly, and our brain immediately goes to he. And so
in the process of review, we'll be saying it about the character, which is a he.
Yeah. Which I'm proud of myself that I said they, them right off the get-go. So I was like, yes.
Just saying, I've seen people just getting all up in arms about some reviewers like, no, they're talking about the character, dummies.
Like, just calm down, everybody. Yeah, like, literally calm down. But anyway, we're talking about The Flash. Obviously, like I said, because of all the events happening with Ezra Miller, there's been a lot of, I'm boycotting this. I can't wait to see this. And there was a huge uproar of positivity with these special screenings. People were dubbing this the greatest comic book movie they've ever seen, the greatest DC film they've ever seen, all this kind of crap. And all I'm thinking about is, I doubt that. It's like nothing against it, but and I will say this, in the 2 instances, well, they've been around a few times, but we've only really seen him in Justice League. But Ezra Miller's Flash has popped up in the TV show The Flash for like a scene, and Peacemaker he popped up in a brief moment there. So we wouldn't really have gotten like one technically appearance because both Justice League movies is technically the same film in a way.
Batman versus Superman, technically
for that one brief moment. Yeah. But it's but I mean, I admit, like when Ezra Miller first got casted as the Flash, I was like, talking about the guy who plays Credence in Fantastic Beasts. I don't know. But in Justice League, they were one of the brighter parts of that movie. I really enjoyed their performance. I thought he was funny, like the Flash should be. And I was worried, but by the end of it, I was like, actually, Flash was, to me, kind of one of the highlights of both films, technically. So it was one of those things where it's like, outside of the real life crap that's happening, I was excited to see him do his own movie, or they do their own movie, because I just wanted to see what they would do. And then, of course, you add the addition of Michael Keaton being in this, which right there sold. I just for Keaton being back in the Batsuit alone, I was locked in. But just the premise of the trailer and everything that we saw, I was positive but hesitant at the same time, because time travel movies are either, they either work or they don't work, or you just have them like, well, they tried. And at the end of the day, when I saw that they were kind of going back and doing pretty much almost Man of Steel, I was like, do we really need to be doing the same kind of story again? Did you have any worries going into it based off of that stuff?
I would say I was cautiously optimistic going into this, because like you, Ezra Miller, I think, was one of the better parts of Justice League. I don't care for Zack Snyder's Justice League, its extended cut. You and I have talked about that. We're probably never going to watch that version again. But Ezra Miller was probably one of the best parts of Justice
Both.
League. It had the right tone, being kind of the younger new member. The Flash, was he had more comedy moments. He was kind of in awe of the other characters, and it just kind of worked. Everything he did there in Zack Snyder's world, where everything is extra dark and serious. The Flash
Doom and
was
gloom and
a
everything.
little
Yeah.
lighter and more entertaining. Ezra Miller, I have liked as an actor. Not loved. I mean, because I don't really care about the Fantastic Beasts film. I think The Perks of Being a Wallflower is okay, but overrated.
I mean, I love Perks of Being a Wallflower, and I love everyone in it.
Mm-hmm.
His character is good in the first half, and I feel like in the second half he kind of falls off. But
There's a movie, one of his earlier movies, I really liked his performance in at the time, their performance. Was We Need to Talk About Kevin, where he plays basically this kid who's on the edge being a school shooter or whatever. And it's kind of funny because now people refer to it as We Need to Talk About Ezra. Uh, all those issues. But I mean, I think they're a good actor, and it. So going into this, I'm like, you know what? I hope it's good. My problem is I don't care. Partially about DC is kind of like rebooting everything anyway.
yeah,
And then the Flash has never been an exciting character to me. I never watched the TV show or anything. I know you loved it. I know a lot of people do. But the Flash
but
feels
see,
like
with me though, even with the TV show, I watched it all the way up to when, spoilers for shows that have ended already. Once they killed off Green Arrow, I pretty much lost all interest in all the shows. And I watched them like every week. But as soon as they did the whole story arc where Green Arrow died, then they went on like an extendedly long break, and I never went back to any of them. So I did not watch like the last like 3 seasons ish of Flash, or like the last 2 seasons of Supergirl, or any of them. But yeah, I did like it, and there was nothing against them. It just kind of just fell out of it, kind of deal.
yeah, but like you, I had, so I was kind of like ambivalent. I'm like, I'm gonna go see it. It's a comic movie. I go see all these, and I usually like them all, even if I don't love them.
Mhm.
But then I started hearing, all the buzz, like, oh, they're calling it like the best superhero movie ever made, or best comic book movie ever made. And I'm like, I know it's not. I know that's just hyperbole, especially by people that are either connected to the film. It was like it was who was it? David Zaslav, I think, or James Gunn, or somebody connected to DC and Warner Brothers.
James Gunn said it.
James Gunn said it. And of course, he has an invested interest in having DC do well.
But still, like, dude, you're Guardians movies. Don't
Right.
say sacrilege,
Right.
dude. Come
No,
on.
but I'm like, I know it's all hyperbole, but at least that's I don't think they would put that kind of push behind it if it came out and like, no, that completely sucks, because that would
Yeah.
make them look really bad.
Yeah.
So he was saying that, and a couple other people did as well. And so but my interest and my expectations, I guess, were raised a little bit, and that's why I said I was cautiously optimistic. So I'm like, I hope it's good, but I'm not getting my hopes up too high because, A, it just could be a complete mess, and B, I feel they were blowing it up too high. The fact that Michael Keaton in it obviously is one of the best things about it that raised my interest and a lot of other people's interest in it. Getting to see him in it again, getting to see a glimpse at Supergirl, in a supporting role. That was
Even though it's not going to be the Supergirl that's going to be going forward with it.
right.
So
But at the time this was made, you got to realize this movie
yeah,
was made, what, 2-3 years ago? Shot this
probably
movie?
even further to a point.
Yeah. So it was supposed to come out like 2 years ago, so it's been shot at least 3. So at the time they didn't know about the
I
Supergirl.
thought it was
movie,
almost shot pre-COVID.
So I think they were going to plan on moving forward with the Supergirl. Because I think at the time they were talking about, even before the James Gunn thing, they were talking about having a Supergirl movie, which I think would have been her.
Yeah.
But I was interested to see that, and yeah, we'll just go from there.
Yeah. For anyone who's watching, if I'm coming off nasally or it looks like I'm snorting cocaine, this is a big stick. I've got a head cold. I'm literally doing this trying to keep from running the nose and stuff. So
also, he did cocaine earlier, so you missed that.
I did, but I can't do that on camera because YouTube frowns upon that. So this is a Vic stick, everybody. But on top of that, just because I'm in my head about everything with the cold, Brian, why don't you go into your non-spoiler thoughts?
So non-spoiler thoughts. Gotta tiptoe through this one. I will say it is not the best superhero movie of the year of all time. It's not the best superhero comic movie of the year either.
Nah.
Even it's probably not even the second best comic book movie or superhero movie of the year. But is it good? I'd say overall I enjoyed it. I I don't think it's amazing. I think there are things that don't work, which we'll get into all the details of what didn't work.
Well, if
I
it's
think,
non-spoiler, we can go into it.
yeah. Well, I just give my general thoughts first.
Okay.
Um, but I think there is enough that I do like about it, enough that is good that kind of outweighs the bad. And so overall, I came out with a positive impression. Um, I do. I had just watched the Flashpoint Paradox, the animated movie, which is
Animated.
based on the actual comic book.
Yeah.
So I was kind of curious to see how it can compare to that. Um, and that's one of the things is I think they. I mean, obviously not. Most fans haven't seen that. I think most people going to see this movie will not have seen that or familiar with the comic book or anything. But having seen that, it's like this feels like such a a scaled down version because obviously they can't do everything they can do in that basically unlimited budget of animation essentially.
Yeah.
Because in that one, you had another character as Zoom instead of a second Barry that was kind of messing with time with them.
Wasn't
You
it
had
also wasn't it also Thomas Wayne?
yeah, Thomas Wayne was Batman. You had Superman was the one who had been captured and kept out of the sun and stuff in a cell, and then instead of Supergirl, you had this whole big war with the Themyscira versus Atlantis. Wonder Woman's people versus Aquaman's people. That was the whole central thing of the movie going on, and so you had these big giant climaxes and stuff like that. So obviously it wasn't gonna live up to that, but which by the way is excellent. I think you should watch that.
It is actually a really, really good animated film.
Yeah. But as far as this movie, I think they're almost a victim of their own marketing because I realized because I was kind of nitpicking at it and thinking about what I did and didn't like about it and how if I was disappointed by it, things like that. But I realized when I look at this as just a Flash movie, like if this was just like they came out with like when they came out with the Wonder Woman movie, they came out with this character, they came out, this is the Flash movie. I think it's a really good Flash movie. But they set it up as like, this is this giant DC event because you got Flash, you're gonna bring back Batman, you're gonna have Supergirl in this, and they set it up to be like this major event. It's like it doesn't live up to that hype of being one of the best comic movies of all time. But if you look at it as just this is the Flash's movie, this is one Flash movie, it's actually quite good, and I really kind of enjoyed it.
I think it also kind of reminds me of a movie that came out earlier this year where if they would have just kept it in their lane, it probably would have been solid. But because they blew it up to be bigger than what it was, it failed to meet that expectation, which is Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania.
Exactly.
If Ant-Man and the Wasp,
if that was just been a little off Ant-Man movie, it would have been great. But they tried to make it more than it was.
You added the whole Kang thing, and it's supposed to lead to the Kang dynasty and all this crap. And everyone was blowing this up like it's an Avengers level event and all this kind of stuff. And it was blown. And then by the time you watch it, you're like, well, that, if anything, that just made Kang look worse by the end of it. And then not counting the whole Jonathan Majors of it all, but it's just like if Ant-Man and the Wasp can beat Kang, why are we supposed to believe that Kang is the next Thanos level bad guy? And with the Flash, it wasn't necessarily that it was that, but with everything happening now with the DC EU or whatever they want to call it now,
the new one's gonna be the DCU. The old one's
just DCU.
Yeah.
It's and Aquaman's gonna have the same problem later this year. The only DC movie that's not gonna have that problem is Blue Beetle because that is going to be DCU.
Well, it's weird because the James Gunn said the Blue Beetle character is now is the first character for the DCU, but the movie is not necessarily the first movie of the DCU.
What I think about with that, and I know we're veering off into DC talk, is I feel like he probably saw Blue Beetle and said, you know what, there's nothing that happens in this movie that's going to affect what we already have planned. So he's easily able to just come back and we can continue his story and he'll interject perfectly well with what we got planned. It's not like he's going to have Ben Affleck's Batman pop up and go, oh, we're going to have to fucking figure this shit out. And which is why I also think like Peacemaker and even the current Suicide Squad, they're not affecting in other films enough to the point where it's like, well, we can't bring them in because then it fucks everything up. And I think that's what's probably going on with Blue Beetle is he saw Blue Beetle. He was like, you know what? He goes, there's nothing here that screws up our game plan, so he can stay.
Yeah, whereas that was made to be an HBO Max movie, and then they went theatrical. So
Yeah, well, that's because the whole HBO Max or Max template thing, and I think is for the most part officially done with
Yeah.
the releasing just in those films. but that was the whole big thing with Flash is like a lot of people were expecting this movie to be the restart or the reset for James Gunn's DCU, and it's not. He even
I'll tell
put
you,
out
yeah, you can tell you
he
now
put out and
it's
said
not.
it. It's
People
not.
thought like this is the perfect opportunity. They're going to explain in this how it can be with other universe. Like, no, it doesn't touch it at all. It doesn't explain anything. You can infer things yourself at the
Yeah,
by the end of the movie, but
but
that's purely your inferences.
it also hurts it in a way too because once again, much like what's going to happen with Aquaman and even Shazam earlier this year, is at the end of the day, why should we care about where this movie ends up by the end? Because we're probably not going to see these characters in
Mhm.
this atmosphere or with these same people playing them or anything like this again.
Which is
So
why if I thought if I just look at it as a one-off Flash movie, I can appreciate it more than if I'm looking at it as this puzzle piece to this bigger universe.
well, which I try to do that as well, but the way it ends, I can't do that. And that's we'll talk about that more in the spoiler, but the movie is itself in Flash, in a non-spoiler way. And I agree, not the best comic book movie ever made, not even the best comic book movie of the year. I also agree, not even the second best comic book movie of the year. In the DCEU spectrum of good movies, it's in the upper tier. It's definitely a good comic book movie. It is not a great comic book movie. When The Flash is good, it is really, really, really good. When it's not good, it's really bad. And I think in some of the respects, I think the highlight of this movie is Ezra Miller as Barry Allen times two
I
because
thought they did a great job.
yeah, I
Not
thought they were fantastic, and it was for a 2.5 hour movie. The main issue I had is it took about a good 45 minutes for me to actually like start really kind of enjoying the movie.
Yeah, early on, the tone, I really didn't love the tone. It was like too silly for quite a
It was
while. I
either
mean,
too silly or it was too like gloomy. Like it was like you have like these comedic effects, but then you also just had like this like over not even over the top, but just like this drama of Ezra's or Barry's
mhm.
character with his dad and stuff, and just like everything's just doom and gloom and all this
Basically,
kind of stuff.
up until there was the two
Well,
berries. I
yeah, it
think
was
the
basically
early segment.
until you got
Yeah,
Barry two. We'll just say Barry two in this or younger Barry.
young berry.
Once young Barry and older Barry get together, that is when the movie really kicks into.
Mhm.
Now I'm actually enjoying this because Ezra Miller does both Barrys very well to the point, and some people have noticed this. I didn't notice it while watching it. They did feel like two separate people to me.
Yeah,
I didn't. There were so many times where I was like, I'm not watching this going, well, there's a green screen, and these are just him acting against a nobody and stuff. And apparently, some people said they could tell the deep fake thing, which I was like,
I
I
could,
wasn't.
and I had heard that, and I was kind of watching for it, and I didn't really. I mean, we'll get into it. There's plenty of horrible
Yeah, there's
CGI in this movie.
of the graciously horrible things that happen in this film. That is not a problem for me because I
Yeah,
didn't notice it.
yeah. The
But
face swapping, I didn't notice at all, though. Yeah,
no, I didn't. But I really enjoyed Ezra Miller's performance as older Barry and younger Barry. I think their dynamics worked really well. I also think it's something that I heard someone else mention. I was like, that's actually a really valid point, and actually, it totally makes sense. Is that older Barry is basically almost like the internet community about how they felt about Ezra Miller's performance of the Flash in Justice League. Wow, you talk too much. Wow, you're annoying. Wow, you don't shut up. You're just the whole fucking time. And he calls him out on that. It's like, oh wow, I just realized that's
well,
what
that's
I'm
it.
like. And I was like,
It was
that's a good
probably a little
joke.
wink to the audience, but I think it's also just because Barry has gotten that kind of reaction from the other Justice League members and people, and
Yeah,
and now is a little bit older, and he kind of like, wow, now I get why people feel like that about me.
yeah.
I am really annoying.
Everything makes sense. I am annoying as fuck, but I loved that dynamic through it. And when they do have jokes, not all the I would say there are times when they're really, really hoping for a very big laugh out loud moment, and it's not even a funny moment. It's just kind of like, okay. But when it hits really, really well. But yes, Ezra Miller's arc in that story and his performance as both Barrys is the highlight of the film. Michael Keaton as Batman, I feel like is, for me, it was a double-edged sword. When Michael Keaton is in Batman attire and he's playing Batman, I was in love. I was so happy. He does more action in this movie than I ever saw him do in the first two films. Granted, special effects and choreography and shit is way better now than it was back in the late 80s, early 90s. He definitely does a lot more for a guy who's like what 70 something in this age compared to where he was in that. But when he's Bruce, I felt like I feel like he was being Michael Keaton and not Bruce Wayne.
See,
Does that make
I
any sense
personally,
to
I
you?
didn't feel that way because I felt like he was definitely different, but I think that was like because he had kind of found peace with himself. You know, it was the whole thing. He wasn't like the darkest dark and broody anymore. B, he even said like, "Hey, Gotham's a nice place now. You know, we've had lowest crime rates than ever. That we don't need Batman. I've been able to just live my life." And so it's like I kind of dug that vibe. Yeah.
It's not that I necessarily didn't dig it. It was just more like just hearing his dialogue. It just didn't feel like Michael Keaton's Bruce Wayne. It felt more like Michael Keaton, which I'll take Michael Keaton 9 times out of 10 any day of the week. But it just didn't feel like Bruce. It felt like Michael Keaton performing Bruce Wayne than him being the Bruce that we know. But when he's Batman, I was like, oh, he's right back into this. He is perfect.
Mhm.
I could have done without him trying to do all the catchphrases that he says in the movie.
Yeah, well, there's only
Because
two I noticed.
there's
So the one
there's
being "I'm
one,
Batman." They're both in the trailer, by the way, so we're not spoiling
yeah.
that.
The Let's Get Nuts.
That felt so forced. That
That
was
was
like that,
forced. That was forced to the maximum because
and it
hey,
didn't make
it
sense.
didn't. Yes, it didn't even match the moment. If he was gonna say it, he would have said it during the fight sequence at the end when like the big goon was coming. He's like, "Oh, you want? Let's get nuts. Let's get nuts." That would have
Or if
made sense.
somebody
Not
had
just
said, "This is nuts," and he could say it, but no, they
yeah,
didn't.
but no,
He
he
just brought
just
up this
throws it.
line
He
that he
throws it
said in
out there.
response to the Joker's line, so it made no sense here. It's like, whatever.
Yeah, it was such a force because like, he says it. I'm like,
Yeah.
that's it's the context of how that is iconic doesn't match how you're saying. You're just saying it almost like it's a TV show. You're like, oh, I gotta say my catchphrase, which it's not even a catchphrase. It's a one line in the movie, and it's
Right, it's not
only
even a catchphrase.
iconic. It's only iconic, honestly, because of Beetlejuice. It's not even a Batman thing. It's a Beetlejuice thing that more connects it. So it's forced and weird. Going to Supergirl, she's fine. It's nothing against the actress, but she is given nothing of substance of a story to use. And when they do give her a little bit, it's not anything new or unique. It's just it is what it is, and she's just kind of like a plot device to do certain things. And it's one of those things where it's like it, it's nothing against her. I think she's fine in the role. I think it's the writing of her
Well,
that kind of is a disservice.
I think the another part of this problem is the fact this was filmed so long ago when they probably had planned to make her more a part of the universe, is because her role in this felt a lot like Wonder Woman in Batman versus Superman, where you didn't learn anything about Wonder Woman in that movie. She just showed up and she was like a part of this, battle and stuff. You like introduced the character, but
Yeah.
you didn't really learn anything about the character, and she didn't have a lot to do in terms of like character development. And that's what Supergirl was here. But the problem is here we're not getting her own movie, at least not with this version of the character, this
Yeah.
actress. So it's like now it just feels like this extended cameo.
Yeah, and then you add the elements of like Zod and stuff, and you're like, oh, okay, Michael Shannon's back. They didn't need Michael Shannon back.
Michael Shannon, let's get this right. Michael Shannon probably showed up for a day of filming, and even then they just filmed his face and then superimposed him onto the bodies.
Yeah, like Michael Shannon was not needed in this movie at all. They could have had Doomsday been the bad guy, and it would have had the same effect. And then they changed certain aesthetics. Instead of fighting in the city like in Man of Steel, they fought out in the desert. probably because it was cheaper to film it that way. That's the thing that, and the other thing, the biggest thing that hurts this movie is that when the effects are utilized to its potential, such as Flash's speed and how he moves and his power set and stuff like that, Flash looks great when he's the Flash. It's everything around Flash that the movie fails. And when I mean fails, I mean like Scorpion King in The Mummy Returns bad. There are certain the opening scene it's supposed to be for comedic effect. And would it have been funny? Yes, if the special effects weren't ungodly awful. It's one of those things where it's like I can see the humor here, but I am so distracted by how bad everyone looks. Like it is like, did you lose all your budget to something else that this is just the best you had, or did you guys have to like? And it can't be that we ran out of time because you pushed this movie back so many fucking times.
They've had tons of extra time. They've had an extra year and a half or so to work on this movie, and it's like,
and it's just like this
the
is what
general
you gave
special
us.
effects of like the fight scenes and the battle scenes and things like that, and in the Flash, I think those effects look great. But there's those certain scenes which we'll get into that are so bad. It's like I described it as 2000s era CGI because it really is bad.
Like I said, it was a mixture of, like I said, Scorpion King and Mummy Returns or Beowulf to a point where it's like you're like, what? And then for
like,
having,
are they even trying to look real here?
Yeah, it's like, and then you have Andy, is it Muschietti?
Muschietti,
the director, who's a fine director, come down and say it's supposed to look like that. I'm like, don't, fuck you, don't you? No, don't.
Because even if in certain scenes you have some sort of explanation for it, in these other scenes you don't.
No, it's like don't.
Even just in the Ben Affleck's Batman scenes, there was some horrible CGI just that just looked weightless and flying around in his cape, especially. It's just like, oh.
It's like don't come out and try to backpedal yourself now. This looks bad. It looks really bad. And we are in 2023. We know the limits. It's not like DC's on like a tight budget or anything. You guys have the money at your disposal. It doesn't matter if this movie costs $300 million. You're probably gonna make the money back. It's fine. Put the money into this film. But the special effects are so distracting that it takes you out of the film because you're going, why does it look like this? And a lot of these moments are important moments in the movie, and it immediately goes, ooh, that doesn't look good. And then I'm immediately taken out of it. And I'm like, oh, I'm supposed to be feeling a way right now where the characters are and stuff like that, but I can't because I cannot stop looking at just how badly this looks. Iris West also completely useless in this film. I don't think I wasn't crazy about the actress in the first place. It's kind of like a Transformers thing from last week. I think they could have gotten a better actress for it, but even at that point, she is not given enough to do anything in this movie for it to matter. And
she's in like what, 3 scenes? She's not in that much of the movie.
3, maybe 4 scenes, and even then they're like a minute long each, so she's not given enough. In a 2.5-hour movie, Iris is maybe in this combined 5-6 minutes. And then you like there's other cast members in this film, like the I'll say the friends that are just horribly performing. Like there's this one overly long scene in young Barry's apartment where these characters are talking, and I'm just like, I hate everything that's happening right now. I don't like the performances of these 3 characters. I don't like the way the actors are portraying these characters. It's annoying, which young Barry's annoying, but he's supposed to be annoying. I don't need to hear 3 other characters be annoying at this point. And
I didn't mind them that much.
I couldn't stand like, especially the first scene with older Barry where they're just being bullies. Like, you're all a bunch of nerds. Like, you don't act like you're better than him at that point. Like, because at first I thought they were going to be Iris and Cisco from the TV series. Like, oh, those are his buddies. And it's like, oh, no, I know who these characters are because I realized what their names were. I was like, oh, the douchebag guy number 1 is Malfoy from the show because it was played by Draco Malfoy. And then the girl was played by someone way fucking more attractive on the show. But it's just, yeah, their characters are obnoxiously annoying. Luckily, they're not in the movie long enough. But I just felt like outside of Ezra, Keaton, what's the actress name that plays Supergirl?
Uh,
Uh, wow, she's not on the main front page for.
it's listed pretty low, and there's a cast. I even knew it too. Keep going. I'll find out.
Yeah, like
Oh,
those.
Sasha Callie.
Yeah, they're fine performance wise, but I feel like everybody else around them, except for Ron Livingston. But once again, Ron Livingston's not given a much. I don't even think Flash's mom does that well in the film either. I thought her performance was just kind of meh
I thought it
in
was
it.
fun.
I thought her performance should have hit a little bit harder for the essence of what her character is, kind of thing. But like I said, they're not in it enough to derail the film. It just felt like that they were on a different level than Ezra and Keaton and Sasha. But like I said, at the end of the day, when it works really, really well. When it doesn't, it fucking doesn't. So for me, it's a solid film. And like I said, where it ends, sorry, where it ends, I was more. It's a funny way to end it, but knowing we're not probably going to get these characters back in this capacity kind of pissed me off because it's like you were ending this in a way that is so open ended that it's almost like ending a TV show on a cliffhanger and then it gets canceled and we're just never gonna see what happens to them. And then the fucking post credit scene is the most pointless fucking post credit scene because like I'm watching it, I'm like I'm expecting something to happen or it to connect in a way, and it's just a a scene. It's just a scene, and it ends, and I was like, what? It's not like on an MCU movie where it's like a one off joke or something. You're like, okay, well there was no point to that, but it was there for one last joke. This is not necessarily a funny scene. It's just a scene, and it goes on for like 2 minutes, and you're just like, okay, it ended. Why was that chosen as the post credit scene? What was the importance of that scene? No, it wasn't. So why was that necessary? We could have came up with anything else to end the movie with, and that's what you chose to be the last potential scene with Ezra Miller's Flash was that. And so, like I said, at the end of the day, I think as a Flash movie, if you're not trying to look at it as an open story, which it's hard to do based off of how the movie ends, I think it's a fine film. I like I said, I liked the performances for the most part. I liked for the most part how the story plays out to a point. It's just there's a lot of things that bothered me about the film. For me, my overall score, I'm gonna give it a, I believe I was giving it a 72 or a 73%. Um, and that's honestly because based off of how I do my rankings, I honestly wanted to give it like in the 60s. Yeah, 73%. I wanted to give it into the 60s, but then I was looking at the score, like the movies that were right above it. I was like, no, it's better than that. It's better than that. No, okay, it's gonna get a 73. Where were you on your overall score?
Well, overall, my score is about the same. I give it 3.5 stars out of 5, so basically a 7 out of 10. So my score is about the same. I will say that there are things I really liked about it. The things I didn't like about it, aside from the CG, I did not. Most of it did not bother me as much as it bothered you. So I think that's why overall I feel like I enjoyed it a little bit more than you, even though our scores are about the same.
Yeah. So yeah, that's our non-spoiler. Like I said, we're having to tiptoe around this because there's a lot of shit to talk about, but it's hard to talk about it in a non-spoiler capacity. But we hope you enjoyed the non-spoiler aspect of the show. I know we were kind of all over the place with it, but it is what it is. Mostly people are watching this because you want to see the spoiler chat. But if you guys enjoyed this non-spoiler, hit that like, share, subscribe button to the channel so you guys stay updated with all the latest videos pop up on the movie Crusaders. Of course, you have to follow us on social media, as you see below. If you have not seen The Flash, stop now, go watch it, come back, because we're about to talk about some spoilers. Or if you just don't give a shit and you want to listen to it anyway. This is your spoiler warning. 3, 2, 1. All right, go into the spoilers. Yeah, back to the CG because we can't let that shit go. It's so egregiously bad. We'll start with the opening scene of it all. It was. I was almost kind of annoyed because Barry is not a likable character at the start of this movie. Barry's kind of a douche.
Yeah, well, I mean, he was honestly kind of a douche in Justice League as well, but it's like he did seem a little more. Well,
He was a
the
li
whole
but
thing
he was a
is
likable douche in Justice League. In this, he's kind of like just whiny, like, can't you guys get someone else to do this? Like, dude, you're the fucking Justice League, man. Shut the fuck up. Like
well, the thing
that.
is, it starts off at the coffee shop or the donut shop, whatever it is, the sandwich shop's what it was,
It
and
yeah.
the guy making the sandwich, he was an idiot, so I would be douchey to him too. He was kind of a jerk, but the thing is, he gets the call
Like
and
he's
like you
bitching to
realize
Alfred.
he was like fifth on the list or whatever to call. And what got me though is when he first like he goes in the bathroom. This happened a couple times during the movie. Like he goes in the bathroom and then zooms out and creates this big waves and people don't even flinch.
Well, it's like it's same
Still
thing like
talking. La, 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 la.
same thing like at the very, very, very end when he's late for court and he just blitzes and then peers right in the middle of the fucking steps where everyone is. I'm like, don't you think anyone's gonna notice you just randomly appeared out of nowhere and
But
fucking
like even we did the sandwich shop and a couple other places as well. It's like people like things that like fly, like people somebody's hair would blow, and they wouldn't think anything of it. They'd just be like
that?
yeah, it's like that. But they just continue their conversation like nothing just happened. Like, but you guys don't wonder what that sound or what that feeling was?
You didn't feel that little mini sonic boom?
Yeah, and then we see him, you see him doing his little flash run, through the city and stuff. You see, but the thing is, the way they have him running, it's like that weird, like almost a slow motion kind of thing.
It's this,
which it's like, okay, we don't know what it would look like if somebody really ran that fast, obviously because it's a fictional thing, it's a fantasy element. But it's like, but then in the middle of showing him, doing these strides like this, you see him doing like these turns. Like, how would you turn mid stride? And what I do want to say, the reason I brought this up, because later on you see him start running and he starts running really fast. And then all of a sudden it turns into that. So I write it off to, if you see like a hubcap or a fan or a bicycle.
And after a while,
it goes so fast it starts looking like it's moving slowly.
Yeah, it starts doing like that kind of
thing. I kind of wrote it off to that.
The weird run worked for me because when he actually loses his powers and starts to run, I laughed out loud so hard when he's running around.
He run around a circle in that room.
I was like, you know how ridiculous you look. That was probably the hardest I laughed in the fucking movie right there. That was a great joke. But yeah, he shows up and he got this whole like built this hospital's blowing up and Batman's doing a car chase on the other side of town, and you get this whole sequence where like the front half of the hospital falls off and all these babies come flying out of the window.
First he shows up and he's like, well, the gas and electrical lines are bursting down below. So he goes down below and then all he's going to do is just tying them into a knot.
Yeah, he ties them into a knot. It's like, I don't think that's how that
it's not like he was super strength. He wasn't like, doing anything special. He was just tying the lines into a knot for some reason. And then he's like, the entire east wing is collapsing, which is like this front part that sticks out. And this whole thing is going to collapse. And so he goes and saves a handful of babies that fell out of one floor.
It's like 6 or 7 babies and a nurse
and a dog. What happened? What about everybody else who's in that entire part of the building that's collapsing?
I think they were chalking it up to, for the most part, that everyone else had been evacuated. But I was thinking that too. I was like, aren't you gonna run through all the other? Because other Flash, like TV show Flash, would have ran through every floor.
At least check. Everybody. Yeah.
Like, I'm sorry, Quicksilver did it, and he did it a lot better than you did. But you're watching it, and then they get into Flash mode. We'll call it Flash mode. And I'm looking at the babies, and I'm like, why? They kind of look like oh god, the Ally McBeal dancing baby.
Dancing baby. That's totally what they look
like. And I was like, why? Like the only one that, even though he looked fake, the only one that looked somewhat normal was the dog. Because the dog is a dog. You got to do what you got to do with it. But it was like every baby looked weird. The nurse looked weird. Now, the execution of what he does with it, where like he's, puts one in the microwave, he pushes the burrito, and they're like, that stuff's cool. But
I want to say, I have to give them credit for this, because one thing I've always hated in these movies is that like the Flash, like go and like grab somebody and run people all over. It's like you would break necks and kill people. But they addressed that. They said like he can't just grab all the babies. He had to like do it a certain way because it would hurt them. It's like in one of the X-Men movies. I think Quicksilver like supported somebody's.
Yeah, he's like, I think it was Magneto.
Or was it in Age of Ultron? What it was?
No, I think it was
somebody's head, so it wouldn't do that.
I think it was First Class, because I think he was bringing Magneto out, and he put his hand back. He's like,
so I'm glad they're finally addressing that, because it's always
because like I was thinking that too. Is like these babies they would snap like a fucking twig if you
You try to
tried to
move at
grab
super
them the
speed,
right
yeah.
way. And so they go he goes through that whole spiel and he lands and everything, and then you get the horrible acting of the nurse screaming, and I'm just like, "Oh my god, shut up." Like, just
That's how I would react if it happened, but
you wouldn't just continue to scream after
but
you've
but
already
but I don't know if this is where you're going with it or not, but then his first line after that is like, "If you wanna seek some help for mental health," you
Yeah,
know? He's like, "Justice League's not too good with that yet," and I'm like, "Are they trying to actually nod to the camera about Ezra's?"
I think so, 'cause that's where immediately where my brain went to as well. I
'Cause I'm
like,
sure
we
everybody in the
probably
theater was like, "Who's he to talk?"
I was like, I think you're probably overthinking that line, but I mean, but it is kind of
I have to think in the however many screenings it went through with DC brass, with Warner Brothers brass, and everything, that somebody, I guarantee somebody's like, "Should we leave that in there?" And then they're like, "Yeah, we're gonna make a conscious decision to leave that in there."
yeah, it's very on the nose.
Yeah.
But what I also liked, but it didn't really become a factor the rest of the movie, which I think it should have become a factor, especially with Young Barry, was like the whole thing where when he's trying to do everything and his calorie intake got low and
Mhm.
everything started to get faster because he couldn't maintain his speed, and then he had eat, and then that helped slow everything. I was like that was a cool
I did love when during
aspect
the middle of
feature.
the baby thing, and he, like, stops the baby, looks over at the vending machine,
He goes over to the vending
and he, like,
machine.
passes the baby to go to the vending machine first. I
Yeah,
like
and
that.
then like he's working, and then he's immediately like eating like a burrito and shit.
Yeah.
But I liked that they added that element. It's like he has to keep his calorie intake because that's how the speed flow works. But
Mhm.
then they never went back to it. Like that should have been something that they used with Young Barry, which they never addressed it. Which Young Barry should have had that problem, and they didn't. But
Yeah,
it
the
was
only thing I mean, they made some throwaway line about, "Man, I'm so hungry," something like that, but that was
well,
about
yeah,
it.
but I'm talking about like especially near in the final battle, it's like you need to address it like, hey, you need to keep yourself in like they say something like you need to keep yourself in check because you don't have the strength for that yet. But it
Mhm.
should have been more like you need to eat something, man. You don't have anything to do. But it was but yeah, it's like that scene, it could have been better. And a lot of it now could you say, oh, would the better CGI have made that scene better? Not necessarily that it would have made it better, but
But
it
it wouldn't
definitely
have distracted you from
yeah, I
it.
was gonna say it would have made it less distracting, maybe going, "What? Why do they look
But you
so?"
aren't enjoying it because 'cause you're, like, going, "What is this?"
Yeah, because I'm just like, "What are they doing here?" And that's the problem. Is like, I'm not saying that the babies need to look super, super real, but you have so many things that you can pull off in this in with special effects that look really, really good. That when you're doing this and you're making a focus point on it because everything's slow, that it's not even uncanny valley. It just stands out like a really bad sore thumb.
Yeah.
And you're just like, why did you guys let this go through final production like this? Like, where was your mindset? And like I said, Muschietti came out and said, like, oh, it's supposed to look like that because it's from Flash's perspective. No, no, no. Just admit it. Admit it that you guys didn't have the budget to make all of that look real, which A is bullshit too, because DC should have all the money to make
The
this shit
stuff
look good.
later is far worse than the babies, but we'll get
It
to it.
is, it is. But and like you brought up the Batman part.
The Batman's whole thing bothered me because it looked like bad CG, the way he was flying around and the way his cape was clearly all CG, things like that. But then also it's like, while Batman's chasing these people, he, I'm pretty sure, killed a ton of people himself. Because he's
That
like
this
putting on the
Batman
ram, like
kills. We
even
already
after
know that.
cars got hit, he puts up the rams, he rams those cars out of the way, they go flying. He's shooting machine guns out of his motorcycle while they're weaving in and out of traffic. Those bullets are going to hit something.
Yeah.
I'm like,
That,
okay, Batman.
but we already know Affleck's Batman kills.
But he's going to kill innocent people that on the highway while he's chasing
Oh, do
somebody.
you remember BVS? Batman was considered almost like a scary monster villain to regular people. Like so, but I mean, but then like Justice League came out, he's like, oh, Batman's okay. Like
Yeah.
it's like, how did he become good? It's like he was there when Superman died. That didn't necessarily make him a hero. That made him, oh, he died because of you, kind of thing. But it's, but I mean, we get, and then of course, we're getting this whole Barry thing with him and his dad. His parole thing's coming up.
No, real quickly first, though. First, we get yet another unnecessary Wonder Woman cameo this year.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, I will say this: my theater was having audio issues. There was a lot of dialogue when they were talking softly that
I
it
don't
just
think it was
did
your
not.
theater. I think it was the movie because, like, I
Well,
the
could
scene
have
you
been
talking
like
about one
because
with
I
the
know.
lasso of truth. They were definitely kind of mumbling, and you could make out some jokes, but not others.
Because like I heard like because when we do the whole lasso of truth thing, and he says my ego won't allow me to say thank you, and I was like, oh wow, I can't believe you said that. And I realized, oh, it's lasso of truth, and then they're fighting to get it off.
The
And
barrier thing was a good laugh, though. I gotta say,
Batman's saying something. I couldn't make out anything the Batman said. I heard the criminal say what he said, and then of course Barry says his line, but I couldn't hear anything that Batman was saying.
Batman did just kind of turn into mumbling in the background because you started hearing like flashes stuff.
But there was a lot of conversations like when Barry's dad's talking to him on the phone. I could hear it, but I was having to do kind of like lean in, no, like everyone be quiet because I have like really good hearing, but I am having a hard time hearing these conversations. Honestly, it wasn't until young Barry showed up that it seemed like the audio for the most part was fine. It almost seemed like only when Barry was in real time world that the audio didn't seem to be focused that well. Because even when he's talking to Ben Affleck in the alleyway, that conversation seemed to just be really soft and quiet. Now, granted, they weren't talking super loud because they're talking about time travel and shit, but it just seemed like anytime they were having conversations where it was like very monotonely low, my theater had a hard time hearing it. But like when he's with young Barry, they're loud the whole time, so you can hear every conversation then. But yeah, you have this Wonder Woman cameo, which granted, I'm like, oh, okay, cool. She showed up for a scene. I mean, you gotta have a mindset where they are around to a point,
but they already said that she's off busy, or no? She said she wasn't answering. That's what it was.
Yeah, she wasn't answering her phone. It was who was it? That was it Aquaman that was doing something different?
I don't remember.
I can't remember who it was. But Alfred was giving excuses for everybody. But yeah, so I mean, you had the little cameo there. There was a fun joke there. It worked, and then we get this whole other subplot with his dad and his parole hearing, and Barry's trying to find like this surveillance video of him at the grocery store to basically say that, oh, he was there. But he says in the thing that he never looks up. But at the end of the movie, he did look up.
That's the point. You didn't catch that?
What?
He said somehow the tomatoes moved from the lower shelf to the higher shelf, so his dad had to look up.
It'd be different if we saw that Barry changed that.
It was heavily implied. I think everybody in the world got it but you. Because he even said, because even when he comes out to do the interview, he goes, somehow the tomatoes moved from the bottom shelf to the top shelf. So he looked up, and it's like, yeah. It was.
We never saw Barry look at that and go, I'm going to do this real quick. He never did that.
We saw him look at the tomatoes, and then he looked up, he saw the camera, and you saw him kind of get an idea. Ooh. And then next thing you know, it was.
Oh, okay. Okay. Then yes. Okay. There's the context. I saw him look at the camera, and I was like, is he afraid that he's on camera? Like that's where my brain was. I was like, because my brain went to when, and I know it's not the same thing, but my brain went to like Justice or not that BVS when he was caught on camera doing flash shit. My brain went to that.
Yeah, no, because we got the idea. I could tell you got an idea, but I wasn't sure what it was. But then they show his dad. He looks up, and you realize, oh wait, something changed. And then he confirms it when he starts doing that little interview outside of the courtroom. But anyway, we're getting ahead of ourselves.
Yeah, well, no, I mean, it's not like we're really going in chronological order. We were just talking about the bad special effects. But yeah, going back to the special effects, we have the point where he goes into Speed Force, and that is the most egregious part of this fucking film.
What they call it, the time bowl or whatever they call it.
It's supposed to be the Speed Force, like that's literally what it's called. It's the Speed Force, but yeah, they call it, what was it, the Chrono Bubble or
whatever it was,
some shit, and it just. Like the
pretty much everything that happened in that, anytime they were in the chrono bubble,
was horrible.
I didn't like any of it.
No, it was bad. Except for
I will say the first time that like a villain showed up, I was like, "Ooh, this is getting interesting now. There's something in there."
Which because in the show, that was like the time police or whatever, basically saying you're not allowed to fuck with time, kind of thing. And I think effectively eventually ended up being exactly what the end of this movie was too, which was another version of himself. But yeah, when I saw that, I was like, oh, they're actually going there with this. Okay, cool. But yeah, every time he's in there and you're watching everything around him, horrible looking
It is,
CGI.
because even when it was just like memories of his parents, things like that, it was just this bad like PlayStation 2 video game,
Yeah.
render of
How
this
hard is it
character.
to just take a photo or a shot, like actual camera shot,
Film them.
copy, paste around? You could
Yeah.
do that and it would look
There
fine.
was no reason not to, and this is the part that he was talking about how, oh, it's intentional because that's how things look in there, because I'm like, no. Because then, okay, we might as well jump to it now, because then besides the family stuff, there's obviously the cameos. And whether it be Christopher Reeve, whether it be Helen Slater as Supergirl, the Nick Cage one, were there any other notable ones? I know you can kind of see
There
some.
was the original Flash, there was Adam West as Batman.
You can see Adam West and another Batman. I think it was supposed to be from the serials and stuff, but though kind of covered in masks
Yeah.
mostly. But
Which at that point, why aren't you showing everybody then? Where's
well, that's
Tom?
it.
Yeah.
Is these cameos completely pointless. There's no reason to have any of that in there except to be like, oh, look, cameos. Remember?
I will admit though, I did kind of cheer when I saw. I was like, "Oh my god, is that fucking Nick Cage?" And I was like,
The
"Oh
director
my
himself,
god, there's Nick Cage."
Sean managed to avoid it, but the
I
director
did.
himself in interviews spoiled the fact that Nick Cage appeared in this. Well, Nick Cage appeared in this movie. Nick
I
Cage wasn't
I
even in this. It was CG Nick Cage.
I got that surprise to me in the theater, and I was like,
But
"Oh!" Like, I was
none of
actually
them
generally
had any
excited.
reason to be in this movie. Like I said, if they're going to do them all, why didn't they do Brandon Routh? Why didn't they do some of the other people
Yeah, where
that
was
these
I
roles?
can understand Henry not being there because that's Barry's Barry, but where
There
was
was
Tom
a shot
Welling?
of Henry in there, but it was more. It was a different part of the
Yeah, but
thing.
like, where was Tom Welling's Super Smallville
Yeah.
superhero? Where was
But even then,
current Tyler
I didn't
Hoechlin?
want to see more of them. I want to see less, because there was no
But
there
no,
was
it's just like what
served no
retains,
purpose to be in
like,
this thing.
at this point, based off how the movie ends, at that point they should have also had Val Kilmer Batman at one
Yeah,
point. Like, if you're gonna CGI everybody, where the fuck was Val?
at least put Val in that part. If you're not going to put him, like he doesn't get a shot
Yeah.
at the end like George does,
I
at
can
least put him in
understand
that
you
part.
not doing, like, because then it's like, where's Pattinson? Where's Bale? Where's the animated, or Kevin Conroy Batman? It's like, if you're gonna show these guys, you might as well fucking just show everybody. Because it's like, why are you dictating who gets shown and who doesn't get shown? And especially Val. Why was Val not shown? I
Yeah,
can understand them not doing Bale, but Val Kilmer's should have been shown in that moment.
yeah, because you showed that entire run of Batman except for him.
Exactly.
Um, so and then, but the thing is, and of course we already talked about how bad the CG was, especially though when they got into the main three, the Christopher Reeve, Helen Slater, and Nick Cage. I thought those all looked really horrible.
I think my only defense of that is because obviously, Christopher Reeves is dead. Nick Cage doesn't look like that anymore, and I can't speak for Supergirl. Obviously, she doesn't look like that anymore, but I don't know if she's passed or anything like Christopher Reeves. And I don't think they wanted to do a photo because with Christopher Reeves, you could have just taken a split from one of the many superhero or Superman movies and put him in. Nick Cage, you would have. There's nothing you can really do with that one. That one you would have
They
had.
could have. I've seen so much better, CG human recreations or face swap, however they want to
He
do it.
looked better. He looked better in CG as Ghost Rider.
But I also got to say that the Nick Cage thing was funny once, but then they went back to it like one or two more times. Like, no, you should have left as a one-shot cameo. Because first of all, they made his like way more extended than the rest. It was like this
They
big
wanted to make sure
reveal.
you knew it was Nick Cage.
But then they went back to it like once, twice more. Like, no, just stop.
Yeah, they
Just
wanted to make sure if you didn't notice it, that was Nick Cage in it. Which for my dad,
which
who
9 to the people have no idea why that's
yeah, I
funny.
was gonna say, it's like my dad had no idea. My dad's like, Nick Cage never was Superman. I was like, and then I had to explain, like, yeah, he was supposed to be, but then all this shit happened, and so it's one of those things where I was like, it's a great,
And he was even
funny
fighting a big
inside.
mechanical spider, just like they were supposed to.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's like, it's a funny inside joke,
Yeah.
but 90% of the people probably have no idea.
It's just like earlier in the movie with the Eric Stoltz in Back to the Future thing.
Yeah.
It's like I think a lot of people, but not everybody, a lot of people know that story about how he was supposed to be Marty Fly and he filmed part of it, but he didn't finish it. It was replaced.
Until I watched what was it, movies that we
Movies that
love,
made us.
movies that made us on Netflix, I had no idea.
Oh, you didn't know that? Oh, okay.
No, because I'm not
Yeah.
the biggest Back to the Future. I like Back to the Future, but I'm not like a huge Back to the Future fan.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
So that's something that, so again, probably not a ton of the audience knew about, and so they made this joke about, no, he was in Back to the Future. It wasn't Michael J. Fox. What are you talking about? But again, it's like they made that joke once for the people who got it. It was funny,
And
but
then
then they
that
like
scene went
kept talking about it and they explained it to death.
forever.
They killed the joke. Yeah.
Like I said, that whole scene was awful. It was awful. I hated that scene.
You know, I didn't hate that much. I hated the Iris in the apartment scene. There was too much slapsticky things with all the cupboard
With
pop
doors
open,
and
stuff
everything
flying
opening
out,
and stuff.
and all
Yeah.
that stuff. I hated that more than I hated the Friends scene. But anyway,
The friends are just poorly acted. But yeah, I mean, in terms of, like I said, young Barry, older Barry, I liked their aesthetic. I liked their banter back and
mm-hmm.
forth. I thought,
I think that's the best part
especially,
of the movie. It's the two of
yeah,
them.
even
Yeah.
and you got to get older Barry his dramatic chops. I really enjoyed that one scene where he blows up on younger Barry, like, "Don't you say that? Like, you don't know what it's like." He's like, "Why are you being a dick?" He's like, "Cause you put Bear on the wall and used him as a," and I was like, "That's the best way you can say that without telling him the truth." But I also felt like that in this movie, it's 2.5 hours long. It needed 30 more minutes to breathe.
I will
Super
say I did not feel the length. This did not feel like a long
No, it
movie.
doesn't. That's why I said it needed more time because there like Barry finds out because he's hiding under the fucking cave and he hears it that way. Like, no, those characters deserve to have an actual conversation. Supergirl deserved to have some conversations and allow herself character to breathe. Iris, for as important of a character she's supposed to be, needed more time in this movie to
Which
breathe.
again, I write that off too. They were going to introduce Iris and use her more in the future, but now obviously they're not.
Yeah,
So
man, it's just this movie was just like you said, it didn't feel linked because it was go, 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 go. And there's so many times where I was like, you need to slow down. You really need to slow down. Also, one of the most egregious things that this movie did. How dare you bring the Batmobile in and never fucking use the Batmobile? I didn't realize until the end of the movie. I was like, did they? No, the Batmobile never got out of park.
no, because they took the Batwing out. Yeah.
Fuck you, no. Like, I get it, none of them needed it except for Batman, but how do you bring back the iconic Batmobile and you never use the Batmobile? The only usage Batmobile got was that young Barry slept in it.
I don't know because I can't really. We're going to drive the Batmobile onto the desert battlefield. I don't know how it's going to work.
No, but I'm saying you could have come up with something to just use it, you know. But I'm sorry, dude. You don't bring the Batmobile in and don't use the Batmobile.
So let's get into Michael Keaton of it all. So Michael Keaton, obviously, I was glad to have him back. Glad to see him one more time. I didn't. We already talked about the Bruce Wayne thing, which I didn't mind as Bruce Wayne. Although I hated the
didn't
way
like
they
him.
introduced him
That's what I
because
was gonna say. I didn't like his introduction into
the
it.
whole thing where he like attacks them in the kitchen and conveniently keeping the hair over the face in all fight scenes because obviously you can't do that kind of thing anymore. But it's like I hate when movies do this thing where it's like, if you were going to keep it a secret till it came out, that's one thing. But obviously everyone knew Michael Keaton was in there. They knew who this character was, and they make like this big reveal, like boom, it's like, oh, Michael Keaton. It's like, no, we all already knew that. It's like when Terminator 2 came out, and they act like it was a big surprise when the Terminator turned out to be a good guy. It's like, no, you give that away from trailer one.
Or more recently Han and Fast 9. I was like, yeah, we knew he was coming back. You fucking gave it away in the fucking trailer. I didn't like it because it felt like too slapsticky. It felt like that I can't remember what it's called, but like the music like
like the Benny Hill music?
What's that?
The Benny Hill music?
Yes, it felt Benny Hill to me.
I didn't feel that, but
it felt that way to me because you have the seasoned Flash. Granted, he doesn't have a speed, just getting ripped, and then you have like young Barry just like, I was gonna move, and then Bruce fucking flying into the fucking wall. And it felt very like all the way through, and I was just like, because it was moving really quick, and then it was just boom boom boom. I was like, I feel like Batman once again, even Batman from the 89 and 90, 91, 92 film, he didn't move that quick. So it's
he had a waist for a suit. Did you notice he could actually move his neck in this one?
No, but I'm talking about even Bruce didn't even move.
That's what I'm saying. Is they come a long way from.
I know. But it's I was like, wow, you're like 30 years older, but yet you move so much faster as a It's 30-year-old man, but it's
what I don't understand about this is, okay, so he's retired as Batman because
why is he all recluse?
Why is he recluse and his mansion's all run down? Is it because Alfred's gone? Is that the reason we're supposed to understand?
Where's Robin then?
It's like, why is he by himself? Where's any of the women he was with?
It's like, you're not, just because you're not Batman anymore doesn't mean that you become a fucking hermit.
Yeah, that's why I would like to see this movie. I wanted to see Selena Kyle, Michelle Pfeiffer back. But anyway,
that would have been nice. Like, it would have been strictly for fan service, but I don't fucking care. I would
with all the other fan service they gave us, I would have rather.
Exactly. I actually would have been totally fine with Selena.
Find out they're together or something. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And but yeah, it's just like I said, it was, and I will say this, like, because like this is the other part too, where I felt like, because Michael Keaton's Batman, I mean, yes, he has detective capabilities, but he's not like King Detective in the movies.
Oh no, well, not in the movies, no, but he is described in the comics as the world's greatest detective.
I know, and then Flash even calls him that. I was like, Ben Affleck is more of a detective than Bruce is.
Mm-hmm.
But then you have Bruce like going through time construct like a scientist. I was like, okay, I get it. You need someone to do the exposition of time travel.
You don't know what's happened with Batman between then and now.
I don't buy Bruce like knowing that shit. So I'm like, come on. Like, there's nothing in this world that would explain why this Bruce would know that shit. I didn't dislike the theory or how they explained it. I love how they used the spaghetti theory to kind of explain it. Like, I didn't hate that. But it was just more or less like, I'm not buying that Michael Keaton's Bruce would know this shit. I feel like Michael Keaton's Bruce would be the one on the side type of going, okay, not teaching fucking Barry Allen how time works. Like, that's the part where I was like, that's my part I was talking about. I was like, it felt like more as Michael Keaton was doing this and not Bruce Wayne.
I loved their example there, how they explained time travel.
That's what I said, the spaghetti theory. I liked that.
Yeah, with the spaghetti and the two strands next to each other, as opposed to it's an axis point, so it changes the past and the future, and then it just becomes that big bowl. I liked that analogy.
I thought that was incredibly well done.
Yeah,
I just didn't like who was describing.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I even liked that the small bit when they're in the bat cave and Barry's talking to Kate. He's like, I know you're watching me. Like, this is what's going on. I need you to actually like legit help me. Mm-hmm. Like, I liked that bit there where it's like Bruce knows what they're doing to a point, and he's not like upset. He's just like, look, you guys want to fucking use my shit, you can go use my shit, but I'm not. But then he can't let it go because it's Bruce. But I liked that moment. I liked the relationship. Once again, could have used some more scenes with him, but I did like the established relationship that older Barry was having with Bruce in this, to show that even though it's a different Bruce, Barry was still able to look at him as a friend and as a mentor to a point. But yeah, it's like young Barry kind of just doing his thing. But like I said, I didn't really buy, like, at the end when they kept killing him off, that young Barry cared so fucking much about Kara dying. I was like, why do you care so much?
Well, young Barry was like in love with her. He wanted to have their kids, remember?
I don't think
I want to show this to our kids. Yeah, that whole thing.
I thought he was meant just cool watching Supergirl fly, not like.
Oh, he meant our kids. He even looked at him and he's like,
No, I thought he meant like Barry's kids, not like him hooking up with Supergirl.
Oh no, I thought he meant me and Supergirl.
No, I took that as just like, well, our kids are going to want to see this, meaning like, look, that's Supergirl flying right next to us, kind of thing. I never talked about to like them being an item. If they did, they definitely did not give the screen time allowed for that to believe. But it was one of those things where it's like when she would die, which I don't even think Supergirl would have died in that moment. She's out in the fucking desert. She's got sunlight right fucking there.
Well, the interesting, first of all, when they first show her, and like I said, this is straight out of the original comic and the animated version, when like, she's kind of all, weak and withered and stuff like that. And then I loved how when they get her in the sun, she's trying, and they even show in later scene when she goes up and just like recharges in the sun. I love how they did that. That was all. I do have a question. Where did her suit come from?
It was in the cell with her.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
Okay.
It was late because when they walk in, they
why would they have put that in the cell with her?
I don't know, but it was in the cell with her because
I just didn't know
when you first see her, like you see her back, they look over and the suit's on the ground with
Okay.
her, and I think she may have took it off because you saw that there was some sunlight on her, but not enough to really power her, and the sunlight was on her back because like when Old Barry picks her up, Young Barry grabs the suit, and he's carrying it as they're running out.
Okay,
So
I
the
just missed
suit
that
was
part.
yeah, no,
So
the suit was in the
as
cell.
as far as we're talking about how when she got killed on the battlefield, so are we just to assume that because that it's Kryptonian tech that it can kill her? Is it?
Well, yeah, because all he said was he needed her blood. He didn't say she needed to die.
But,
Now
even
it
the
could
fact
have
that
been.
but even the fact that you could stab and go through her, is it just because it's Kryptonian tech? So it's like as a piece of kryptonite was on Earth. It's just essentially
I
that.
had no idea, but even I was wondering, is like, I'm pretty sure that wouldn't have killed her. Yeah, it would have like knocked her out, maybe like hurt her or weakened her, but she still is in the middle of sunlight,
Yeah,
in the
yeah.
desert.
So
Like
even
I
if it
would
was
think,
kryptonite, once he removed it from her, it should start healing, and
yeah, I would think she'd be fine,
yeah.
unless he like what that one thing he took from her was like some maybe I don't know. He took all of her essence or whatever out of her. I don't know. They didn't give enough time to explain that shit. All they said was
What we saw of Supergirl, I really enjoyed.
yeah.
So, but
She needed more
I agree.
time.
Would like to see more of her. Yeah.
Yeah, she needed more time. Like I said, it was nothing against Sasha. I thought her performance was fine. It's just the writing didn't do enough to allow her to really break through. It was like
Mhm.
it was written for her to go, we needed Supergirl in this movie because we couldn't get Henry Cavill to be Superman, but we don't want you to get too attached to her so that way when we redo her, you guys are going to be mad that it's not Sasha. Like I feel like that like that's almost how they wrote it to her. It's like we don't want you to be too attached to this version because she ain't sticking around.
Yeah, like I said, I had a different read on it because I really think it was like Wonder Woman in BVS, where it's like we want to introduce you to her, but we don't want to tell you everything. We want to tease you with her, so you want to know more about her, and you will. But of course, by the
I
time this
feel
came out,
like
those plans are scrapped.
there was more story for her.
So I feel like they didn't make any changes to this movie in the past extra year and a half they had.
See, and I feel like they took some shit out. I do. Because there were times where I kind of felt like there was something missing. Now it wasn't as egregious as like BVS, where it's like there is like serious plot that has been removed from this movie.
Mhm.
I do feel like there's stuff where I was like, I feel like there was more story here that they just took out because this is probably not continuing overall.
Maybe we'll get an
But
Ultimate Edition on DVD. Who knows?
maybe. And so far for the DCEU movies, the ultimate editions or the extended cuts have been superior to the theatrical cuts, where sometimes that doesn't really make things better. But for them, it's always like, oh wow, this is a whole plot point. This is like 20 minutes of story that was desperately needed in this movie, and you took it out for some weird reason. But yeah, I mean, it was just what I was hoping for too. And I mean, we got it, but once again, it was so quick. But it's also because we aren't going to get more when you get that reveal where young Barry keeps going back and trying to fix it, going back trying to fix it, and you basically start to see he's becoming this creature basically it's in the time zone, whatever we want to call it. Which first off, as soon as I saw him again, I was like, oh shit, that's Barry. Why didn't
I guess it probably was. As soon as you got a good look at him, it seems kind of
like as soon as I saw like the one
the thing
arm
sticking
piece,
out. Yeah.
I was like, it's like, oh, that's young Barry. I was like, oh, they're doing this, but then like older Barry still didn't get it. I was like we all got it. How have you not figured that out yet? But I was like, part of me was hoping, I was like, oh, what if this ends up becoming a future villain, like kind of like I'm blanking on the actual character name, but like Yellow Flash is like his ultimate villain. What if this became a new villain for Flash? But I was like, well, no, that really doesn't fucking matter because we're probably not going to get a continuation to the story. Had we gotten a continuation, I could see him not dying in this and then becoming a future villain in future installments for him. But it was like at the end of the day, and granted this happened in Flashpoint, but it just kind of felt like the whole battle in the desert and trying to save the world from Zod, it just felt like nothing because at the end of the day, it was just like, oh, we're not going to do anything about this. We're just going to let it happen. And it was just like, well, what was the fucking point then? Like, we wasted like a good 40 minutes of film on trying to stop this. And then we just kind of like, oh, well, give up. we're going back. And so it didn't feel like a definitive finish to that subplot. Was it like, oh, Batman died, Supergirl died, I gotta let mom die too, so let me go back and fix it, and then all these people are just gonna die here in like the next
Well,
48.
I mean, 'cause they essentially did solve it, because like if I go back and let my mom die, then none of this happens. Superman still exists, so this doesn't happen. So they were solving this problem, but in terms of as a motion picture, it's kind of anticlimactic to be like,
Yeah,
oh, it's gonna not happen because it's something we're doing over here.
it just feels like it's almost like, and this is a horrible example, but it's the closest thing I can use to this. It's like the fucking end of Twilight when you're waiting for this big fucking vampire battle, and they have the battle, and then you realize that this whole battle that you've been watching was all them planning it out in their heads in a dream state. Yeah, and then
I vaguely remember hearing something about
and then
that.
the battle doesn't happen because they already saw how the battle was going to end, so they don't fight. I think that's how it goes. So it's like that's kind of how this felt. I was like, so we just wasted like 40 minutes of movie time on this when it really, at the end of the day, didn't really fucking matter. And I was like, could we have used that 40 minutes for something better? And the answer is yes, we could have. Because the action, well, yes, you had some cool scenes with Flash and Flash doing stuff, which looked cool. You know, I enjoyed it. I don't remember Zod having that many Kryptonians fighting in Man of Steel, though, because it was just those three. It wasn't like a fucking army of Kryptonians, so that was new. But it was cool to the point, but it was also like, did
I
it
want to
need
say
it?
I half expected when they said, when they said we intercepted Kal-El, and she said, what did you do to him? I half expected to find out like the big one down there was
Yes,
him,
that's what I was.
like
I
been
was
mutated or
honestly
something. Yeah,
I was honestly hoping for that. That the big one, because he
that
was
would have been
wearing
a
a
cool reveal
mask.
if you turned out it was Henry Cavill.
Yes,
Yeah,
because he was wearing a mask the whole time. I was honestly hoping that, like, oh, dude, that's Henry Cavill. Be like,
but then they said he didn't survive, or we killed him, or whatever it was he
yeah,
said. Yeah,
because it ends up being Batman who kills him too. So that actually would have been like a callback to BVS kind of thing. Like, I thought that's an was again an opportunity right there. That would have been good because I kept waiting because it was like a what did you do? What'd you do? And Zod doesn't want to say, and I was like, don't let
that's when I
it.
started thinking, oh, wait, is that him?
Yes, because like I was waiting. I was like, the baby didn't survive. I was like, oh, damn it. I was like, I was really, really fucking hoping for it. Missed opportunity right there. That would have been a great like twist. Like that probably would have been the front runner for surprise twist of the year for a awards had they done that.
And even
But
if you didn't show Henry Cavill, just to know that character was him would have been cool. But yeah,
yes, it would have. And it's just like, damn. And you know what? And I'm sure Henry probably would have like just let them mocap his face.
that's
Like
all
I,
Michael Shannon did. Basically, filmed one day on a
Yeah, I don't think Henry would have had a problem because it's Superman. He would have done it,
yeah.
and he would have gotten paid handsomely for it too. But yeah, it's just like I said. At the end of the day, with it all, I just like there was stuff to like in it. Like I said,
Yeah.
I like Ezra Miller's Barry's. I liked Michael Keaton's Batman, not so much as Bruce. Sasha was good. When the action sequences worked, they worked really well. Like I liked the tornado aspect that Barry used, which he just randomly figured that out in a span of the time frame that we didn't have him there. And even the phasing joke was pretty funny. You know, where he's like, oh, you're not gonna learn how to phase, and he fucking phases down into the apartment naked. And he comes back up, and he's like that. Like I said, young Barry's jokes hit most of the time. It was older Barry's jokes didn't really hit, but it's just there's a lot of things in here that just felt like a missed opportunity, or it could have been more fleshed out, or it could have been written better. But I felt like rewrites changed it up because we know that we weren't going to get another
Well,
one.
part of that could also be the fact that it went through so many scripts and so many directors, because like Jonathan Goldstein, and I forget what his partner's name is, the guys who did like Game Night and
John Francis Daly.
John Francis Daly, yeah.
Yeah.
Those guys, they're still credited as like I think they didn't write this actual script, but I think it was story credits, because like they used pieces of this story that's changed so many times. So I wonder if it just became this hodgepodge of different scripts.
And much like with Justice League with Snyder and Joss, you could tell which part was Joss's and which part was Snyder. You could tell when John Francis Daly's writing was being used, because that's when it was actually funny.
Yeah.
Like there was times where you're like, that's John Francis Daly writing right there.
I will say I want to talk about the kind of final scenes, because my rating for this movie I wasn't sure how to feel about this movie, because like I said, there's things I really liked about it, like with the two berries interacting and some of the action stuff, and then there's things like the CG and a couple other scenes I didn't like so much, and so I wasn't sure where I was going to settle on my rating. And then the last couple scenes, like the one where he goes back, he decides his mom has to die, and so he's going to go back and like take the tomatoes back out of her garden. I really liked that scene. That really helped boost the movie for me, because I thought that I felt a lot of emotion there. I know you didn't seem to like the mom's performance.
No.
I thought she did well.
That scene I thought was really well done. It was more like I didn't enjoy her scene. Like in the supermarket, I thought she was fine.
Mm-hmm.
It was the scenes at home.
It's just supposed to be showing how much she loves her son. That's all it was about.
And I don't know. It was more just like her conversations and stuff. It just didn't.
But yeah, the grocery store scene,
it didn't feel natural. It didn't feel natural to me, but it felt natural in the grocery store.
Yeah, I love that scene. I love. I mean, I've never seen a can of tomatoes made me tear up for the first time ever. I remember because it was a real emotion. I really felt that there.
Clearly, you never saw Wet Hot American Summer.
I did. And, I didn't tear up for the same reasons there. Now I lost my train of thought.
You're talking about the supermarket scene.
I half expect the way she was acting. I half expected her to be like, she knew it was Barry kind of thing. You know what I mean?
I kind of thought that's where that was going to. Like
somehow she knows, but she knows what has to happen or something. Now I don't know how they would explain that, but didn't you kind of get that vibe?
I felt like that when she put her hand like here, like she would have looked at his eyes, like, I know those eyes.
Also, I mean, I don't know her, but I'm not hugging a stranger who comes up to me crying, looking creepy. But
yeah, but you also got to remember this was probably early 2000s, and it was more acceptable now than it was now, kind of thing. But I thought that scene was done really well. I thought Ezra knocked that scene out of the park. Like, I wasn't getting teary-eyed or anything, but I was feeling his emotions. I was like, they are really doing a really good job right here.
And then there's the fact that, like I said, you didn't notice the first time, but how basically he moved the can from the bottom shelf. He moved those tomatoes from the bottom to the top shelf so that his dad had to look up to get them. Yeah. And that was a clever idea. I thought it was well done. Apparently they could have made it a little bit clearer for the audience, but I thought that was well done. It was a cool idea. But my thing is, did Barry learn nothing? What if making his dad live, or making his dad?
It did because of how the movie ends.
That's what I meant. But I'm saying, I'm just saying Barry didn't learn anything, because by doing that and having his dad not go to jail, you have changed everything.
No, but his dad did go to jail. His dad still went to jail. It's just that now
he get out. But I'm saying he still learned nothing, because his dad's going to get out of jail, which is going to change the future. You don't know what was supposed to happen in the future. But as we learned with the access points, that means you've also probably changed the past. So, which we learned from the cameo, of course, which here's one
thing before you get into the cameo. So we're chalking it up that his father gets acquitted for everything.
Mm-hmm.
Wouldn't his dad have walked out with Barry and Iris? Wouldn't he have been free to go?
There's probably paperwork and things involved.
Why would Barry have left his dad? Barry would have been walking out. Barry would not have left his dad alone. Barry would have been walking.
His dad's got personal items at the jail.
I don't give a shit. No, like that's the whole thing. I was like, why is Barry leaving? Iris and Barry leaving without their dad? If his dad, you haven't got to like really like see your dad or whatever in like 20, not 20 years, but maybe 15 years or whatever. You're just gonna leave?
I think there was probably the emotional reunion there in the courtroom, and then but like I don't think they just let him walk away.
Again,
take him back to the jail and
once again though, a scene that should have been in the movie.
Superfluous scene. I don't think you need it.
No, you give Ron Livingston some time to fucking act. Ron Livingston deserves that. We literally just talked about how great he is on another show. You give Ron Livingston that time.
So then we see that he did change time because, of course, Bruce Willis, and you can tell
you knew something was gonna
happen. Was coming. I'm like he's pulling up, he's talking to him like, oh, there's something's coming, and I kind of expect like, oh, maybe it's a different Batman. And for some reason, I thought Val Kilmer, like, no, Val Kilmer, he wouldn't be able to look right. So I'm like,
part of me was like an older Pattinson or Bale.
For some reason, my brain never went to Clooney.
Never.
And so he got out, and I'm like, I love this. And then he's like, no. And they use their F-bomb to say, who the fuck are you? I'm like, I love that.
Because I remember watching it, and I was like, Well, it can't be the new Batman because that's Brave and the Bold, and they haven't casted him yet. So they aren't going to just randomly throw that person in because everyone's like, "What the fuck?"
Well, plus they don't want to connect it because
exactly, but that
old.
would have been fucking ballsy of them to go. You guys don't know who the new Batman is? We're gonna give it away, right? Because that would have honestly brought more people in to see Flash. He's like, "You want to see who the new Batman is? Here you go." But yeah, I did not, like in a million years would have thought Clooney would have showed up. And when Clooney pops up, I'm like, okay. But what I hated was then the tooth popped out. And I was like, and then it ends, and I'm like, okay, that's what pissed me off. I was like, so that's the end? Like
it should have ended with Clooney, and then I think it should have ended with going, "Who the fuck are you?" and then just cut right there.
Yeah.
That's where it should have ended. And then or they should have moved that to be the post-credit scene because the actual post-credit scene is just pointless.
What the I was hoping that you would maybe have saved me on that. Like there was something I missed, like the tomato can thing.
It was just an excuse to make sure you had yet another Justice League person in there. So you had to have Aquaman in there somewhere.
There was no substance to it other than just Aquaman just being a drunk schlub and passing out on the street in water and Barry just walking away to go buy more beer. It's like, what was the point? Like,
I mean, there are definitely. I mean, there have been Marvel movies where the end credit scene is like, "That's all." So I don't talk about any worse than some of those, but it's just like after you've ended with that cool moment with Clooney, it's like you've just kind of taken away from the ending. Yeah,
it'd be like I said, and a lot of it just depends. It's all because we know that this is potentially going to be the last Flash. If we knew we were going to get another Flash movie, I wouldn't be so upset about that post-credit scene because it's like, oh, we're going to get them again and, another movie. We're going to continue probably something with Clooney and all this stuff. That's fine. But knowing that there's a good, highly possible chance we are not going to see Ezra Miller's Flash, this movie is a one-off. We're not going to see these characters again. Ending the movie like that feels a little cheated because granted, we've already now had 2 movies this year that have ended in a cliffhanger with Fast X and Beyond the Spider-Verse or Across the Spider-Verse. But we're going to get conclusions to those stories. What?
I forgot to get into the fact that I'm sick of multiverses, but we already discussed that elsewhere. Anyway.
Yeah, but we're going to get conclusions to those stories. We're not going to get a conclusion to this potentially. And then you add that as the post-credit scene, it just pissed me off more at the end of it. It, like I said, if we were going to continue, fine. If they decide we're going to continue with Ezra Miller's Flash with another movie and stuff and do all that, I'd be like, I don't know how they're going to do that. But
what would have made the post-credit scene worth it is if that was either Adrian Grenier or Alan Ritchson, a different Aquaman.
I would have loved if it was Alan Ritchson, even though he looks nothing like.
But Adrian Grenier, he wasn't an actual Aquaman; he was an actor playing Aquaman. So that wouldn't work. But yeah.
Alan Ritchson looked nothing like he did when he was Aquaman on Smallville, but that would have been pretty funny. But yeah, it's just it eats at me. It eats at me that's how we ended this. Because like I said, it feels like Fastlane for us, where it ends at a cliffhanger, and we're never gonna fucking see an end to this. Because you have the Ezra Miller of it all. Like, granted, they're seeking help, but it's going to be hard for him to even come back as a career. Now, yet Flash is the one way for him to come back, but with Gunn doing his new DC.
Wait, for 2 hours, I forgot all that stuff.
I did too, but
I didn't even think one time. Well, except for the mental health joke, was the only time I even thought about any of that stuff the entire movie. But I thought they did a great job in the role, and I would love to see more Ezra Miller as Flash, but it's not going to happen.
I mean, they talked about, like, when Gunn was given his whole big spiel about what he was going to do. He made it seem like, well, Shazam and all them, they're in, what was it, like DC Elseworld or whatever? I think that's what they called it. So that way they could still continue to, like, say they would, like, Joaquin Phoenix.
There won't be another Shazam, but okay.
And Pattinson's, Batman. Like, oh yeah, they're Elseworld. So they technically could continue, but it gets to a point where, like, it's one thing having TV show Flash and movie Flash, but we're about to potentially now have, if they do to continue with this, we're going to have Pattinson Batman, now Clooney Batman, and then whoever Brave and the Bold Batman, which they announced Andy Muschietti is going to direct that.
See,
Which in my head, I'm going, I hope
personally think that you
better.
were looking too much into this as being like, oh, this was leading to the next chapter. I don't think they were ever going to move on to Clooney in more movies. I think it was strictly, hey, here's a one last joke for the movie
No,
because
I'm
we're in this
saying
multiverse.
I'm saying if they decide, because Muschietti said if they make a Flash sequel, he will only do it with Ezra Miller as Flash. I'm just going off of what
Right,
they've
but there's
said.
not going to be one because they're not going to use.
But they could if it makes enough money, which I think it's going to do.
They're not going to continue anything in the Snyderverse. I can guarantee you that.
I'm just saying if they decide to do it though, then that's the road that we're going to be taking. I don't think they're going to. I think it's more like 1585.
Yeah, and George Clooney would never come back for a full movie. He came back to do a one-off cameo because he's real good friends with everybody at Warner Brothers and stuff. He's done a lot of his movies there and stuff, but he was never going to do it.
I would say 15% chance they continue with this. But if they do, that's
1.5.
Like I said, a lot of it's going to depend on audience feedback and how everything goes. Because if it ends up doing really really well, which I think it's going to do average at best, because of the Ezra Miller thing of it all, and just because the movie was wildly overrated in terms of talking about it. I think if they decided they wanted to do it, then okay, but then you have to have Clooney come back then because that's where we left off. I don't see it happening. I that's why this ending does irk me the way it does, because it's left us in this limbo of a thing, and we're just supposed to go, well, that was it. That's the end of that story. And it's like, we waited how many years for this fucking movie to come out, and this is how you're going to end it with it. It's like, it kind of, like I said, it pisses me off a little bit. It really does.
You're taking this way too seriously.
I'm not taking it serious.
I took it as a one-off Flash movie, and it ends with some jokes, and that's how it should end. I don't look at it as like, oh, well, how are they going to end this? Go on in the universe? No, it's a one-off movie.
No, I just thought that the ending should have been more definitive and not open-ended like that when we know we're not going to continue with it. That's all. That's an easily understandable argument here. Like, you're making it seem like I'm blowing this way out of proportion.
It's just the last joke. You are blowing out of proportion, but anyway.
I'm not blowing it out of proportion. Anything else you'd like to add, spoiler chat wise? I'm trying to think if there's anything else.
Only that Andy Muschietti is a bad actor, even if he's just trying to eat a hot dog.
Did you notice Jamie Lannister too?
I did not see Jamie Lannister.
When young Flash is running for the first time, and he steals that guy's, what was it, a taco?
A hot dog.
No. The hot dog was Muschietti.
Yeah, but hot dog, and he would show up twice. Showed up once during that scene where he took his hot dog, and then once toward the end when he tried to eat a hot dog.
When young Barry runs for the very, very first time, he steals this dude's, I don't know if it was a pizza or if it was a taco, because he tries to eat it.
Oh, the slice of pizza first. Yeah, the slice of pizza was first.
That was Jamie Lannister.
Oh, was it? Okay.
Yeah, because I was like, that looked like Jamie Lannister. And then like the very end of the credits, it said special thanks to, and it was Nikola, whatever the hell his name is. I can't say his name right. I was like,
Walter, whatever.
I was like, oh shit, that was him. I was like, oh yeah, that guy kind of looked like Jamie Lannister with a beard. And I was like, that is Jamie Lannister with a beard.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was a nice little like Easter egg thing that most people, you didn't catch it. I think
I call it Muschietti, who by the way looks a lot like Jim Brewer to me, but that's another thing.
I agree. Because even when I saw that, I was like, that's somebody. I don't know who it is. And then I read, I was like, oh, okay, that makes, it was Muschietti. I get it. But yeah, like I said, I can't think of anything else. I think we covered mostly everything. But yeah, we hope you guys enjoyed the spoiler conversation of The Flash. What did you guys think about it? Did you like it? Did you dislike it? Do you have the same issues I have, or do you think like Brian is, I'm blowing this out of proportion? I don't think I am. Let us know your thoughts. Coming up next, we will have this week's episode of the Weekly Crusaders, where we talk about 2 movies that came out during this week in movie history. Cinemasochism should be coming up here shortly too, right? With Secret Invasion.
We're doing one to go along with Secret Invasion. So
yes, so we got that coming up here. Extraction 2, I have not got to watch it yet. Brian did watch it. Give your quick thoughts on Extraction 2.
Did you like the first one? More of the same. It's got some really awesome action scenes, including like this 20-minute wonder shot. Well, it's hidden cuts and stuff, which is just amazing. It feels like a video game in all the very best ways. But just like the first one, you don't care about the plot or characters, like whatever.
Gotcha. Also, like I said, Elemental and The Blackening also came out this week. I will probably check Elemental out when it pops on Disney Plus and The Blackening. Did you ever end up going to see that this weekend or no?
I'm going to see that probably later this weekend. I'm seeing No Hard Feelings tomorrow night.
Is that like a special screen? I didn't
Yeah,
think
there's
that
an
got
early
released.
preview.
I was like, I didn't think it got released this
It
week.
opened. It opens next week. Yeah.
Yeah. Is that the only thing that comes out next week? Is No Hard Feelings?
That Asteroid City Goes Wide. That one's limited this week, and there's still a listing for a movie called God Is a Bullet, which I think must have gotten moved because I haven't seen any marketing for it.
I saw the trailer for it. It didn't really sell me on much of anything. So next week's going to be a chill week unless you see No Hard Feelings. You're like, Sean, you go check No Hard Feelings because I'm not sold on that movie one bit. As much as I like Jennifer Lawrence, that movie just looks like I think you and I both said like this is either going to be really funny,
hilarious sleeper hit in a
going
summer comedy, or it's going to be just painful.
Yeah, because it looks painful. So we might not have any reviews next week. But yeah, we will be back for the Weekly Crusaders. But until next time, we are the Movie Crusaders. I'm Sean Waskrug. That is Brian Michaels. And until next time, in case we don't see you, go watch some movies and go have some fun.
You're still here. It's over. Go home.